I want to frame my discussion in terms of the previous two, which were excellent. I think mine fits rather nicely because I'll be talking about Afghanistan, which was so well described in terms of historical and social factors by Isaac, but I'm going to take more of a political lens and look at the evolution of the intervention there and how that has played out in Afghan politics. I worked on the elections in 2005 and most recently took a leave of absence from USIP to be one of the commissioners on the Election Complaints Commission for the 2009 elections. So I was witness to the chaos and the fraud that took place there. So I want to draw some lessons from that in the context of Afghanistan's development, and then conclude with some comments about where do we go from here, because I think the situation is somewhat grave. To begin, I think that where we find ourselves in Afghanistan in some ways is back at the beginning. The bomb process that started in early 2002 to set a new constitution, to set a new term of administration, took place after the Taliban had left, and the focus was on governance and setting up the institutions for democracy so that Afghanistan could be self-governing and prevent the kind of destabilizing influences that let al-Qaeda get in the first place. We now have had 8, almost 9 years of intense intervention, lots of money, lots of soldiers, lots of lives are spent, and we find ourselves now, after the elections in 2009, focusing on governance and how to sustain democracy in Afghanistan. So let me just look at this in 3 parts that I think somewhat explain how we got to where we are now. The first phase is really the transitional administration. So the period from the bomb process, where the victorious leaders of Afghanistan that routed the Taliban came together to set a new government. Notably, that did not include the Taliban. They were quite marginalized, and there's a good debate going on now whether or not that was a mistake, given that we now want to talk to the Taliban when they have a much more strengthened position. But in the bomb process, in the transitional administration that followed until the presidential elections in 2004, I think we had several opportunities for progress.